Hi, everybody. My name is Harold Burdett. I work for the Gear Up program with Metro Nashville Public Schools. We are here today to talk about the ACT, and we've invited a very special person, the ACT coordinator for MMPS, Meri Kock. Mary's going to tell us all about everything we need to know about the ACT, the ins, the outs, how to practice, how to be prepared, what students need to know, what parents need to know. So thank you, Meri, for being here this evening. I don't know when everybody's watching this later, but thank you all. Thank you for being here this evening. And I'll just kick it over to you.
All right, sounds great. Thanks, Harold. Thank you all for coming and joining us. I'm going to go through several slides, PowerPoint slides. Just know when I start sharing the slides, I cannot see the chat anymore. But at any point, if you have questions, you're welcome to come off mute. For those of you here, if you're on recording, if you're watching a recording, you're welcome to come off mute as well, but I won't be able to hear you. But ask your questions as we go through. I also have a couple of places where I've set up some breaks to ask some questions as well. So hopefully I'll get some information to you that you'll find useful and that your kids will find useful as well. And I'm just going ahead and share my screen and let's get started. So again, my name is Dr. Meri Kock. I am the ACT coordinator for Metro Nashville Public Schools. A little bit about me and my history. This is actually my 33rd year. Yes, 33rd year in education. I started out as a middle school math teacher in Southern California. That's kind of the first third of my career. And then I moved to Nashville in 2003 to become a school counselor at Hillsborough High School. And I was there until 2015. Moved to Williamson County to be a school counselor for about 3 years and decided it's a lovely place. I enjoyed it. Great kids. Kids are wonderful. I just love working with teens, high school teenagers in particular. And the faculty was great, but I missed the energy that came from working in a much more diverse atmosphere. And so I came back to Metro because there's just something special about having people from all kinds of backgrounds with all kinds of interests that bring their special talents and their special background to an education institution. And there's not any place quite as special as Metro. And so I missed that. So I came back to Metro to work with the families and the students here. And it was a really good decision. Like I said, nothing wrong with Williamson County. It's just that this is where my heart was. And this was the energy that I enjoyed. So I came back here. So tonight we're going to go through, we're going to go through an overview of the ACT. We're going to talk about something called college readiness benchmarks and what those are. And we're also going to talk about what is actually on the test, the types of questions and what they're going to assess. And then that's going to be a lot of information. So I thought that would be a good point to stop and do some questions and answers just about that information. And then after that Q&A session, we're going to dive into, okay, now you have the ACT scores. How are they used? What is the point of having an ACT score? And then also some of the test prep options that we have available through Metro for our students. And then once we get through that, I'll stop and do some Q&A again about anything. And then if there's a topic that I didn't cover or some questions that you have that didn't quite get addressed, please make sure you ask those. If I know, I will tell you. If I don't know, I will find out and get the word back to Harold or JP or any of the Gear Up folks, and we'll make sure that you get the information that you need. So let's start with kind of that broad overview of the ACT and what subjects are tested. So this is the order that the subjects are tested. So when your student takes an ACT test, the first test that they will have is English. And it lasts for 45 minutes and has 75 questions. So yeah, it's less than 1 minute per question that they have to get through those. There is a college readiness benchmark score of 18. Each one of these subtests that I'm going to go through, as well as the ACT overall, is scored on a scale of 1 to 36. 36 is perfect. You missed none of the questions. That is the top score. So it's 1 to 36. So that college readiness benchmark for English is right in the middle. And we'll talk about how many questions is that kind of coming up. The next test that they will see is math. On the math, this is actually the longest section by time. So it's 60 minutes long and 60 questions in math. And so about a minute per question. And the college readiness benchmark for math is 22. So a little bit more elevated than the English. But still kind of in the middle of that 1 to 36 range, 22 for math. There's actually a break after the math section, about a 10 to 15 minute break for a snack and just kind of regroup. And then they launch into reading. Reading and science is the next one, are actually the two shortest sections of the test, which is good. It's already been a long day. But the reading section is 35 minutes, 40 questions. Again, back to that, a little bit less than a minute per question. And the benchmark score for reading is a 22. And then the last one is science. It is also 35 minutes long with 40 questions. And the benchmark score for science is actually a 23. And these benchmark scores sometimes adjust. Matter of fact, just a few years ago, the science benchmark score was a 24, but that's come down a little bit. And I'll talk about how those are calculated and how ACT comes up with those benchmark scores. They are not Metro scores or not even Tennessee scores. The benchmarks are established by ACT themselves. Then the thing that people talk about the most is the composite score. And the composite score is an average of these 4 subtest scores. So you can see that 18, 22, 22, and 23. If you took an average of those scores, it's not going to come out to exactly 21. I think it's like something like a 22.6, or I'm sorry, a 20.6. ACT rounds up, and so that is actually a 21 for a composite score college readiness benchmark. You're going to see that 21 come up again when we start talking about scholarships. So very high level, those are the 4 subject areas that are tested. And then that composite score, again, is an average of the 4 subject areas. So college readiness. What is college ready? And so this is ACT's definition of college ready, which is the acquisition of the knowledge and skills a student needs to enroll in and succeed in college-bearing first-year courses at a post-secondary institution, such as a 2-year, 4-year college, trade school, or technical school without the need for mediation. There's some really key words in here. So the first one is post-secondary institution. You hear post-secondary over and over and over again, and quite often people don't stop and define post-secondary. Well, post-secondary just means after high school. High school and middle school are considered secondary, so post-secondary is after those. So it's whatever you're going to do after high school is your post-secondary options. So again, that is your 2-year or 4-year college, so your traditional universities and colleges that you hear about quite frequently, as well as your community colleges like Nashville State Community College. And I am a proud product of starting at a community college. I did that for 2 years and then transferred. It was the best choice for me. And then also trade schools and technical schools like our TCATs, our Tennessee College of Applied Technology schools. Those are also considered colleges and post-secondary options. So trade and technical schools are important post-secondary institutions for our students that want to go into directions that do not require a 2-year or 4-year degree. And I'm going to be honest, some of those professions, they're going to be earning more money than what I make after my 3 decades in education. So those are important skills. And if that's a path that a student wants to follow, that's something that we need to embrace and support them with. But they also are going to need an ACT score, and you'll see why in a minute. But the key part of the college readiness is that students will be successful in these first-year courses without needing remediation, meaning that they have developed the skills and knowledge throughout their K-12 education that they will need to be successful in these post-secondary institutions, in the colleges, in the trade technical schools, in the community colleges, so that they don't have to worry about, do I have gaps in my knowledge? Do I have skills missing that are going to hold me back? And the ACT scores are what's going to tell the college or tell that institution that, yes, this student is ready to be successful. So let's dive into these college readiness benchmarks a little bit more closely. So what it means if a student achieves those benchmark scores, it indicates that they have a 50% or greater likelihood of being successful, meaning getting a B or better in the corresponding first-year college class. And I'll show you what that corresponding is. So 50% or greater likelihood of getting a B, or a 75% or greater likelihood of getting a C in the first-year college class. That's what the benchmarks indicate. It doesn't mean they're going to get an A. They're not going to ace it. They don't have to be the top of the class. It just means they're going to pass. So B's and C's are considered passing in college. So 75% or greater likelihood of getting a C. So that's why these college readiness benchmarks are so important. It just tells the college these students are ready to be successful. So what are these corresponding classes? So again, for English, that benchmark score is an 18, and that first year course is an English composition course. In every school I've ever worked with, even when I was a school counselor, when I was looking to go into college myself, it was 100 years ago, and dinosaurs were roaming the planet still at that point. It was English composition. That is just the first year course in an English class. For math, the first year, the benchmark is 22. The first year courses are college algebra. Usually you'll see college algebra for those that are going into a STEM profession like medicine or engineering, or I was a math major, so obviously I needed to do a lot of math. So anything that has that type of a strong math science foundation, usually you're going to see college algebra. A student that's going into more of a humanities focus, liberal arts, so something along social sciences or English or music or the arts, they may end up going into a statistics class as a first year option for themselves. And so that 22 is going to align to being ready for that first year statistics class. For reading, this one surprises people. So the benchmark's 22, but this one surprises people because they think, well, reading is English as well, so why do we have two of them? And actually, ACT aligns the reading score to social science courses. So you're talking American history, psychology, sociology, economics, political science, so those types of classes. And you're going to see this would be business majors as well, because they need a lot of that broad knowledge of actually a lot of history. And psychology and sociology goes into a lot of business majors as well. And so that's where the reading connection comes in. And then for science, that score is elevated again because of all those STEM majors, and this corresponds to a first year biology class. So, you know, I've worked with students and they said, yeah, well, I'm going to go into English, so I'm just not going to take that biology stuff, and I'm not going to take math. But what they don't realize, and what a lot of people don't realize unless they've been through college themselves, is actually the first couple of years of college, whether it's a community college or a four-year college, you spend a lot of time doing something called general education requirements, where they do make you take a couple of classes from here, a couple of classes from there, just so you have a broad range of knowledge. Now, that may not happen as much in a trade or technical school, because in those institutions, they still want you to have a breadth of knowledge, but they also want you to have a lot more hands-on and professional experience. So you're not going to have quite the range of these general education requirements. But if you go to a community college, if you're going to do that Tennessee Promise, or if you go straight to a four-year university, you're going to have general ed. So you're going to have to do, regardless of what you think your major is going to be, you're going to have to do classes outside of your major just to meet the graduation requirements. So we talked a lot about benchmark scores. We talked about the 1 to 36 range. How does that translate to the number of questions you need to get correct? Well, this chart right here, and I'm going to send a PDF, and I'll tell you where to get the PDF as well. This chart right here comes from a document called Preparing for the ACT Test. And it's actually free. You can download it off from the ACT website, but I can tell you that website sometimes can be a little bit overwhelming to navigate. So I have actually downloaded it and then linked it off from the Metro site. And then I have it available as a PDF to people within Metro. So if you get in touch with any of your Gear Up folks, whoever your connection is, they can get in touch with me and I can point them in the right direction as well. I will save you the stress of trying to figure out the ACT website. Trust me, use your connections. So anyway, so this chart will help you figure out, if I want to get some certain score, how many questions do I need to get correct in that particular area? So we're just going to go with these college readiness benchmarks. So we're going to start with English. And again, the English college readiness benchmark is an 18. And so what you do is you look over from that 18 into the English column, and it points to, I know it's tiny, but it points to 38 to 39. And what that means is a student needs to get 38 to 39 questions correct out of the 75 that are in that English section. So they don't have to get all of them correct. They don't even have to get 75% of them correct. They don't have to get 70%. We know 70 is passing in their regular classes in high school, but to get this quote unquote passing or benchmark score on the ACT, they have to get just over half correct to get to the English benchmark. And when I tell students this, I can just watch the stress level come so far down on their faces. So this is really important information for them to know. It's like, holy smokes, I can never make it. Wait, you mean I only have to get half of them correct? Only about half. So what does it look like for math? The math college readiness benchmark is a 22. So look across to the math section, and that's 31 to 32 questions out of the 60 that are on that math section. So again, just over half. For reading, that benchmark is a 22, and that number of questions is 24 to 25. So 24 to 25 out of 40, just over half. And finally, for science, that benchmark is 23. Look over into this science column, and that is 25 questions out of 40, just over half. So kind of the mantra for this section is, for any subject, if you get just over half of the questions correct, you're going to meet that college readiness benchmark. Now, students may want to earn higher scores than that, which is awesome, and we want to work with those students to earn as high as scores as possible, because the higher the score, there's sometimes some additional scholarship money that will go in conjunction with that. Also, the better the scores, the better the positioning for getting into things like honors colleges and admissions. But the benchmark scores are your initial goal. And there's another slide coming up at the end that I'm going to tell you about that's also really important to remember. So what's actually on the test? What do they test within the English section? The English section is actually more about kind of editing. In the English classes, a lot in middle school, not so much that I've seen in high school. They're doing more literature analysis in high school, but there's a lot of editing and peer editing. So they'll write essays and they'll have to go back and revise and, you know, did I use the correct word here? Is the correct punctuation and capitalization here and there? Does this paragraph connect to the other paragraph, or the right transition words in there? That's what the English section is. So they're going to give the students a passage, whether it's an essay somebody wrote or a section of some book or essay or, you know, poem or something like that. And then they're going to ask questions about, is this the right word? Does this word make sense? Is the phrasing here, would it be better if they had rephrased it? They use this punctuation. Would a different punctuation mark be better? And they give them options. It's all multiple choice. So that's what the English part is. It's really revising an essay and doing some editing work on an English passage. For the math covers primarily algebra, basic algebra 1. It gets into some more advanced algebra, but a lot of algebra 1, geometry, some functions, word problems, problem solving. Like I said, I used to teach math, so it's a lot of what I saw when I was teaching Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and a lot of kind of 9th grade, 10th grade level math. I am going to tell you, don't say it's all that, it's because it's not. It does get into some more advanced mathematics. It gets into some trigonometry things, but not very many problems of that. Like out of the 60, I've done several of these just through some trainings I've gone through. And I would say maybe 2 or 3 trig level problems and more advanced problems. Really, the bulk of them is more basic algebra, geometry level problems. And so it's things that really your students have already seen. And so it's just a matter of building their confidence and filling in any gaps that they might have in the math. The reading is what people traditionally think would be the English one. Reading is where students get a passage and then they have to kind of do some analysis. What is the author's intent? What is, pulling out some facts and some details. Trying to differentiate, is the author stating an opinion or are they stating a fact, and did they have supporting evidence to make it a fact? And then meanings of words within context. So they'll do things, ACT will do things like they'll pull out a word that will have multiple meanings if you just look it up in the dictionary, but they want the student to identify the meaning that makes sense within the passage that it's used in. So having to read around what that word is a couple of sentences before and after to understand the context of the situation, it will be really important. So this is really analyzing passages and reading the passage and understanding it. The science, for whatever reason, this is the area that the students struggle with the most. Part of it is it's the last one of the day. They've been testing for 3 hours. They're tired. and they're over it. And then science also uses a lot of really big words. They use a lot of scientific words. But if we can help the students understand that really it's reading charts and graphs and tables, and there's passages in the science, but for a lot of the questions, they don't even have to read the science passage. They just go to the question and look at the table, and they can get the answers out of there. So it's charts, graphs, tables, diagrams. Once in a while, it'll say, okay, this scientist did this experiment this way, another one did it that way. Which one, what do you think about the two conclusions? There's like one question like that. So the science could be the easiest part, but they're also tired and they've gotten themselves stressed out usually. And so it's a matter of just helping them figure out how to work their way through getting over those nerves and kind of getting themselves out of freaking themselves out, because that's really what happens with teenagers, is they freak themselves out a little bit. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop a little bit. Now, I am sharing my screen and have this in presentation mode, so I can't see the chat. So I'm going to rely on you guys to either come off mute or Harold to read questions if there are any, or tell me what's going on at this point.
There are no questions right now in the chat. I hope you guys are enjoying this great information so far. I know that personally, I've learned a lot about how the ACT is scored. Like, I've been working in college access for a long time, and I did not know the breakdown of how that stuff works. So a lot of demystifying happening right here. If you guys have questions, please ask Ms. Kock.
So how are scores used? So you've gone through the test, you've done all that preparation, and we'll talk about prep in a minute. You've gone through the stress, you got your scores. So now what's going to happen? How are they going to be used? Well, we talked about composite scores, and composite scores are used for your college admissions, whether it's two-year colleges aren't as stressful to get into because they tend to take everybody because they have enough space, they have enough variety of programs. They don't have to limit space based on housing requirements and such. But your four-year institutions will have your ACT scores as part of their admissions decisions. I am going to address there are a lot of schools that are going test optional, or they don't require test scores at all. And so I've gotten this question already. It's like, why are we talking about ACT scores? Test optional or test, not test at all is a thing. So why do we need this? Because these scores are actually used for some other things too that we're going to get into. So even if the school says, no, don't send us your scores, we're not going to use them for admissions, they're going to use them some other places, which could be honors programs. So several colleges have honors programs where students who are in these honors programs sometimes have additional courses they can take, or they get different types of dorm settings. I was in an honors college for a little bit. I went to a lot of colleges. I started at a community college, transferred to one four-year university. It wasn't the right fit, but that was the one that I was in an honors college for. And then I ended up transferring to the one that I graduated from. But I was when I was in that honors program, they had a special section of dorm rooms set aside for us, not because we were better than anybody else, but because we did some unique programming that kind of took us. We were off campus and we were coming back late, and they didn't want us disturbing the other people. And so that's why they put us in a separate, they were kind of moving us away so we weren't bugging the other students. And so that was part of it, was to kind of build the connection within the program. And then sometimes there's some extra, added benefits of being in the honors program, like speakers or opportunities for engagement within the community, those types of things. So check with your colleges that you're considering and see if they have an honors program. And if they do, what are the admissions criteria to get into those? And sometimes they are based on your standardized test scores. And then scholarships. A lot of scholarships are based on ACT scores, especially the ones that are institution-based, meaning they come from the college themselves. So that, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but definitely look at those scholarship opportunities. And Metro has a Schoology group specifically for scholarships and opportunities, and everybody can join it. So talk to your school counselor about what the code is to get into that. But I've been uploading some of the applications from different community groups and volunteer organizations, and some of those even request ACT scores for their application. So you'll see that quite frequently. Now, this individual subject scores, meaning the English score or the math score or the science score, the reading score, etc., those are going to be used as well. So sometimes for course placement, remember the big key about the college readiness benchmark was without remediation. So if you don't meet the benchmark, you may end up in something called learning support classes, which is a new term for remediation classes, helping you fill in any gaps of knowledge or skills that you may have. As well as if you score high, some colleges may have an honors equivalent at the college side and make some of those higher level, more advanced, quicker pace classes available to students who have higher scores within a subject area. Also admission to competitive majors. So if you know you want to major in engineering and you know which school you want to go to, you might want to check and see the admissions policy within that college. So the College of Engineering, the College of Nursing, pre-med programs, pre-vet programs, those types of programs frequently have some type of admission criteria before they'll decide, yes, you can be part of our program. A part of it is because those are so popular that they need to figure out how they can manage the population compared to the number of instructors they have and the amount of space they have. And so check that. Frequently they'll use subject scores, and in those majors, they're going to be looking at math and science scores. And then NCAA eligibility. And I know a lot of our student athletes are looking at using their athletic ability to help them enter college and maybe get those scholarships that will help make college much more affordable. And the NCAA is all about making sure you have not just the athletic skills, but also the academic skills to be successful. And we're going to take a closer look at that in just a moment. But they want you to have both GPA and ACT scores so that you can be successful in the classroom as well as out on the field. And so that's an important component too. So let's start with state scholarships. So this is about Tennessee Hope Scholarship, Hope with something called the General Assembly Merit Supplement, and then also a Hope Access Grant. So the basic Tennessee Hope Scholarship, this was the first one. This was the flagship scholarship that came out several years ago. And to qualify for the Hope Scholarship, you have to have an ACT composite score of 21. Remember, I told you that 21 composite score was going to come up again. Here it is. This is why the Hope's qualifying score is a 21. It's the college readiness benchmark. This is indicating that your student is ready to be successful in college. Therefore, the state of Tennessee is going to award your student the Hope Scholarship if they get a 21 composite score. And this is for in-state institutions. So if they're going to go to Harvard, they are not going to get the Hope Scholarship. If they're going to Harvard, they're probably going to get some other scholarships from Harvard itself, so you're not going to need to worry about the Hope Scholarship. But if they're going to go someplace out of state, typically the Hope Scholarship does not go with them. However, the nice thing about the Hope Scholarship is if you don't get the 21, there is an or in this sentence, and that's why I put the red box around it, or they need a 3.0 GPA. It's an unweighted GPA. Talk to your counselor. It gets the rules about that unweighted GPA get a little bit interesting. And I think if you look at your transcripts, you'll see 2 GPAs, and one of them is the Tennessee Hope Scholarship GPA. So if you don't have the 21 ACT, make sure you have the 3.0 GPA. If you don't have the 3.0 GPA, make sure you have the 21 ACT. One or the other of those is going to give you the Hope Scholarship. Why is Hope so important? And I've had students in the past say, yeah, I'm just going to do Tennessee Promise. I'm not going to worry about Hope. Tennessee Promise is a fabulous program. I love that program. However, it covers tuition only. Hope will cover tuition and books and fees. So if you can get the Hope Scholarship, it gives you a little bit additional money towards your college needs. But if you can't get to those benchmarks, that's okay. The Tennessee Promise is a great option to help you get started on your post-secondary path. So they're both great options. Okay, the Hope with General Assembly Merit. The General Assembly Merit Scholarship gives you the Hope plus additional funds. And again, your school counselor is going to have the exact amounts. But this one has elevated requirements. It is quite a bit more money, and so they elevate the requirements. This one is a 3.75 GPA, and this one has a 29 ACT score. So you have to have both to get the General Assembly Merit. Now, let's say you've worked as hard as you can, and neither Hope nor General Assembly Merit is out of your reach. There's something called the Hope Access Grant. And so Hope Access means you came really close. You didn't quite get to the Hope benchmarks, but you came really, really close. And so they're going to give you access to some funds. This is a grant, so a grant means you don't have to pay it back. They're giving you this money. And to qualify for the Hope Access Grant, your GPA has to be between a 2.75 and a 2.99, meaning you didn't make it to that 3.0. 3.0 is Hope, but you came really close. And an ACT score between 18 and 20. So you came really close, but you didn't quite get there. There's money called the Hope Access Grant. So there's funds for students that really did try and they put forth their best effort and just barely missed out on making those 2 benchmarks. So making a 21 is not going to end your college career. So there are other options there. Now, we talked about institution scholarships, and this is just an example from MTSU. This is a list of some of what's called merit-based scholarships. And merit-based scholarships are scholarships that are based on ACT or SAT scores. And these are some of MTSU's merit-based scholarships. And you can see, based on what the ACT score is, it changes the amount of the scholarship. The GPA for all 3 of these is consistent. It's at a 3.5. But if a student has a 30 ACT score, they get $5,000 per year for all 4 years of college. If they are at a 25, that drops down to $4,500, which doesn't sound like much, but when you multiply it out by 4 years, it turns out it's actually per semester. It starts adding up into a lot of money, that $500 difference. And then a 23, it drops another $2,500. So $2,000 is nothing to sneeze at. 23 on your ACT and a 3.5 GPA, $2,000, bring it on, bring it on. $2,000 is still money. It's still great. But if we can still push up those scores more, then the more money that's available. And this is just MTSU, but UT Knox has the same idea. TSU has the same idea. And you just have to get onto their websites to see what their scholarship offerings are and what is the criteria. But all of them have something. So you can just look at their financial aid pages. And the school counselors can help you kind of navigate through that, as well as your Gear Up personnel. They can help you with this kind of wading through all of the weeds here on the financial aid stuff. We talked about course placement. This is Motlow State Community College, very similar to Nashville State. This is just down in the Murfreesboro area. So remember I mentioned learning support is a different name for what we used to call remediation classes. And so if a student hasn't reached the benchmark for entry, and it's not always a college readiness benchmark, sometimes it's a little bit lower for being successful in these first year classes and being able to avoid these learning support classes. You'll have to check with each institution because it can differ from institution to institution. But the important thing to know about these learning support classes is they're helping you develop the skills and filling gaps that you may have in your knowledge. But frequently, most often, you're paying for the class, but they do not count towards your graduation requirements for college. So it's added tuition without any added benefit. And so that's why we want to make sure you have the scores that you need so you don't have to take these learning support classes that are not going to count towards your credits that you need for your degree. But if you need them, fine, but just know you're paying for them and you're kind of treading water. And we don't want you to tread water. We want you to move forward because you want to move forward with your life and your aspirations. NCAA, okay, NCAA is important. It's a big deal for our student athletes. NCAA handles scores. This is the most unique way I've seen NCAA or anybody handle scores. So this is for Division I. Division II is a little bit different, but everybody looks at Division I. So these are your UT Knoxville's, your Vanderbilt's, your MTSU's. These are all Division I schools. They look at a combination of GPA and test scores, and it's kind of a sliding scale. The higher the GPA, the lower the test scores. The higher the test scores, the lower the GPA can be. So it kind of wavers back and forth. So I made up these numbers. It's not an actual student. So let's pretend we have a student that has a 2.5 GPA and took the ACT and got an 18 in math, 18 in English, 17 in math, 20 in reading, 19 in science. Other than English, the other 3 scores did not meet college readiness benchmark. Are they going to be eligible to play sports at this Division I school that they got heavily recruited for and said, you are going to be our star everything in this sport, but we need to make sure you qualify. So the way you use this chart is you find the GPA first. And so 2.5, it's tiny type, so I put arrows and circles so you can find it. So there's a 2.5 GPA. Then what you do for NCAA is you take the 4 subject area scores and you add them together. And so when you add those 4 scores together, you get 74 points. So you look at the ACT column that is next to the 2.5 and you see how many points that you need to get. Tiny type, I'm not going to make you squint and get close to the screen and try to figure it out. It says 68. So a student with a 2.5 GPA needs to have 68 ACT points. The student that we made up has 74. This student is golden. This student does qualify based on this scale to play their Division I sport. You need to make sure they've taken the right classes, and that's a whole other conversation that you want to have with your counselor, because those rules are kind of tricky and interesting with the NCAA as well. But as far as GPA and test scores, they are on the right track. They qualify. And there's that 68. All right, so scores, we've talked about what the scores are, how they're used. How do you prepare? What's the best preparation to be successful on the ACT? Well, do well in class. It's an academic test about academic skills. So do well in your academics. And the only place to do well in your academics is in class. The important thing I want students to understand and really embrace is if you're in an intervention class, if you are getting extra help with math or reading or English because if you took the map and your map scores didn't turn out what they need to be, or if you did some other assessment and they said you need to be in this class, embrace that opportunity, because what those schools are saying is we want to help you be better. We want to fill in those gaps that somehow develop during your school years and get them improved so you can be successful in your next steps. So I know I've worked with students that go, I don't want to be in this class. But embrace that opportunity. They're trying to help you succeed. That's the point of the class, is to fill in those gaps so you can move on and move forward and not struggle with some of the academic skills that, for whatever reason, just aren't there. And so this is your opportunity to recoup that information. Other preparation you can do is if you go onto the Metro website and go to mmps.org/ACT, that's actually a website that I put together that lists all kinds of different options. So from through January and February, every single Wednesday afternoon, we did a webinar series leading up to the there was a March 1st ACT for juniors. It was paid for by the state. And so we did a series of webinars every Wednesday about a different aspect of the test that gave tips and hints on how to approach the test and how to be successful on each section. And so you can see, you can look at the different areas of interest. There's a set of tabs that if you open the tab, you can see information about the English section or the math section or the reading section, whichever section you want to read about. All the webinars that we did, like this one, we recorded them, and the links to those recordings are on that ACT webpage. And then also, if you scroll down to the bottom of the ACT page, there's information about how to prepare by grade level, starting at elementary school. So those of you that are parents, if you have younger children in elementary and middle school, there's information about what they can be doing now so they can be successful later on when they get into high school and start taking the ACT and kind of doing some of these other tests. So on the next screen, I'm going to show you. So this is at the bottom, this is the early high school part. So this is like for 10th graders. 9th and 10th graders. But if you open up the early high school menu option, it's going to give you, I don't expect you to read this on the screen. Again, I get it. But the top part of this is the academic information. So this is things like, look at a student's, I mentioned map, look at the student's map scores, look at their end of course or TN ready scores, talk to the teacher and ask the teacher, what are you seeing as far as their academic skills? Where are the gaps? Where are their strengths? What is it that we need to build on? And what is it we need to build towards? So the top section is looking at what are the academic things that are going on at school that we can use to inform how my student is doing, so we can make sure that we're addressing the right things to prepare them for the ACT. The next section are resources from ACT itself. This is where I put those links to get to that preparing for the ACT guide. So you don't have to hunt through the ACT website. You can just click the link and get there. And it's a free download, and it has a full-length ACT test in it. It has a lot of other information in it. So you can be looking at what the test actually looks like well in advance. Students can sit down and start kind of working through problems and go, oh, I'm familiar with this. I have no clue what this is. And kind of start analyzing themselves about where do they need help and where is it that they're feeling confident. And then the last section is some additional resources that all of these, I made sure, A, that they are free, and B, they're not from commercial sites that are going to put you on mailing lists and, you know, start bombarding you with stuff. They're from places like, there's one from the U.S. Army. They're not going to recruit you for the Army, but they do have some ACT test prep information in there. There are things from the Tennessee Electronic Library System has a fabulous test preps whole section of their website that you can take a free practice test, and then you can get some insight into how you did and get some extra practice and tutoring on that. The bottom section is some of our community organizations. You can see the very first bullet down there, if you can read tiny type, is Gear Up. Lean on your Gear Up folks. They are knowledgeable. They know how to help you with the ACT, but then also how to connect you with other resources to be helpful on the ACT, as well as things like the Martha O'Brien Center, if you're near that, the Oasis Center, their College Connection Center. So we have some community resources that are very helpful as well. So that's all on the ACT page of the Metro website. So again, mmps.org/ACT, and it'll take you right to all of this. Once your student gets into an 11th and 12th grade, MMPS has purchased a program called Mastery Prep. And this is an online program. Some students will be taking an ACT prep course when they're in the 11th grade. This is the curriculum for that course. Or they may be doing it through a PLT class in 11th grade. This is the curriculum that's used in that PLT as well. And what it involves and what's included in it is students can take up to, I think there's 9 practice ACT tests on there. They do it online and they get instant scores. I mean, as soon as they finish it, they'll know how they did. And I've actually, these scores that you're seeing, we have a demo student site set on there. And these are not my actual scores. I just went in there and randomly clicked. I didn't even read the questions. I just randomly clicked things because I wanted the graphic. I wanted the visual in there. But then there's also, like I said, there's 9 practice tests. I went in and did another one that actually does have my scores. I haven't done all 4, so that's why I didn't put it up there. But it simulates a real ACT, and I was stressed too as I was doing it because I was watching the clock go down. But it gives you the same feel. It gives you the same experience of taking an ACT, but it also will tell you, hey, this area you did really well. You can see kind of those bar graphs. The longer the graph, the better you did on that section. The shorter the bar graph, that's an area that you might want to practice on. And they have built-in practice geared straight to how you did on the practice test. They have video tutorials that will link to how you did on this practice test. They will prioritize the videos that they suggest watching to help you address those skills that you might be lacking in or that you might have some gaps in. And then also, like I said, lots of practice questions that students will be able to go through. So this is all for 11th, and then the 12th graders will have access to practice tests. 11th graders have a lot of resources available in it. And we target 11th grade because they do have that state-funded ACT test that happens each March of the junior year. And so that's why we try to give them as many resources as we can to really get them ready for that, to do as well as they can on that March ACT. So basically for test prep, your academic skills, know the test structure. So that's why download that PDF if you can off from the ACT web or off from the Metro ACT web page. Once you get into, or using some of those other resources, once you get into 11th grade, kind of use that Mastery Prep platform. The testing strategies, that's what you'll hear on those webinars that are recorded that are available on the ACT webpage. Time management, you heard how many questions you have versus how long the test is for that section. Several of them were less than a minute per question, so learning how to manage your time. And the big thing is calm your emotions. If you can figure out how to kind of regulate your emotions, and once you feel yourself getting stressed, how to calm that stress and kind of get that washed over you, you're going to be okay. You got this. And the first time you take it as an experience. All the students will actually have a second test funded by the state of Tennessee. It's a senior retake that happens in October of their senior year. So the first time you take it is your practice run. You're just getting used to the environment. You're getting used to the test, and then you'll take it again, and you'll know better, and you'll be more relaxed, and you can do better. And so the important thing to remember about this ACT test is one test score on one single day is not going to define who you are. A test score does not have any defining characteristics about you as an individual person. You are the person who defines who you are, not a test score. You're a human being. A test score is a test score. So this is a video. Let's see. Yep, we got time. If you have not seen this video about Gerald, you're going to see it now because we got time. It's about 6 minutes long, so kind of relax and rest. I have been showing this video to everybody I come across just because Gerald is amazing. It does take just a moment to load, so kind of relax a little bit. It's just kind of one of those things about buffering in the whole bit. So, but let's listen to Gerald. So, like I said, I've been showing that video to everybody, and Gerald just touches my heart. Hey, he's a math major, so how could I not love a math major? There are so many quotes in that video that I just want to steal and post everywhere, not just about the failure, but, you know, easy is good for 5 minutes, but hard is what's best for the future. But the thing that I think people overlook on this video too is, if you recall the very first video of him swimming in the pool, and he's the only one in the pool and everybody else is done, who do you hear on that video? Who do you hear pushing him and cheering him on, even though you know he's last, long last? You hear his adult, his important adult. You hear his mom going, "You can do this." That's the role of the parent. And so that's what I hope you're taking away from this. So, and I'm going to tear up, and I'm not even a mom. So what questions?
Hello, everyone. This is, I don't have any questions, but I do appreciate this time. It's been a while since I've taken the SAT and ACT, so this was like my little review of, oh, yes, that's what these numbers really mean again, since my girls have taken it recently. One's a junior at Cane Ridge, and one's a freshman at NSA, and they came to me with these scores, and I see this, I'm like, oh my gosh, these numbers really mean something. I forgot what they were. Also the resources, is this PowerPoint going to be able to be downloadable? Because I or shared or something, because I wanted to really show them like how these numbers are going to be used. I always focus on numbers because I like a bit of math myself, and I want them to really get a visual of this is what they're going to be used for in colleges, and for when they play sports for school as well, how they're going to be used. So I do appreciate this, but that's all I had to share.
So yeah, I can send the PowerPoint to Harold and JP. You guys can make it available to the Gear Up folks. And I don't know where we're going to post the recording. Harold, you might know that.
Yep, I got you. I was just waiting to jump in and say this video will be on our Gear Up YouTube page tomorrow morning. Thank you so much for that input. Does anybody else have any other questions? I've got something to plug, really important thing to plug, but I want to make sure we get through all the questions first.
Go ahead.
I know, so even though my junior took it and my freshman took it, because NSA does things a little different, and I'm happy for that. What about those in between? Is that something I have to do on my own? I have a child that's a sophomore. Is that something I have to go outside to an outside resource to take, or?
Yeah, so Harold, I think you guys they're at NSA for the 10th grade?
No, they're at Cane Ridge.
At Cane Ridge? Okay.
That's the perfect segue. Let me go ahead and plug the thing that I was going to plug, because I think you're really going to like the sound of this. So, okay, let me start here. Gear Up works with 7 high schools in Nashville. We're talking about Antioch High School, Cane Ridge, Glencliff, John Overton, Maplewood, Pearl Cone, and Stratford. I was trying to do that alphabetically if you didn't notice. So we work with those schools, and we specifically work with the high school graduation classes of 2024 and 2025. So that's this year's 9th and 10th grade. So next year we'll follow them 10th and 11th grade. We'll follow them all the way through their first year in college. So it sounds like you have a student who's in 10th grade at Cane Ridge. They are a Gear Up student. I'm sure Miss Darty, whose camera's on right now, and she just nodded at me. I'm sure Ms. Darty has a relationship with your student already, so they would be eligible for this opportunity I'm about to tell you about. So this summer, we have partnered with Nashville State to offer a free ACT boot camp over the course of July. Now, here's how it's going to work. Each camp, there's 4 camps, and each one is over 1 week in July, okay? So let's see. The first week would be July 5th, which is a Tuesday through Friday. The 8th, and that's going to be at the main campus at 120 White Bridge Road. We're going to do it also at the 3rd week of July, which is the July 18th and to the 22nd, both at the main campus. Those weeks in between, so we're talking about July 11th to the 15th and July 25th to the 29th. Those are going to be at the Southeast campus, the old Hickory Hollow Mall location, Global Mall, whatever you want to call it. And those will be from 9 to 12 p.m. every day. You're welcome to secure your own transportation to get there, or we can arrange for a bus to come pick your student up, probably somewhere in the 8 o'clock hour, and you'll be home probably in the 1 o'clock hour, something like that. But it's totally free. It's led by Nashville State instructors. Like I said, transportation is provided. We'll also provide food, lunch, all that good stuff. This will be students from all across our Gear Up schools. So your student will have opportunity to meet kids from other schools and learn what life is like at their other school and make new connections that way. So I always think that's really exciting. Each week is capped at 25 people that we can serve. So once we really start promoting this, your student needs to get with Miss Darty, or if you're at one of those other schools, get with your Gear Up coordinator to secure your place on that line. Okay. So again, those schools are Antioch High School, Cane Ridge, Glencliff, John Overton, Maplewood, Pearl Cone, Stratford, and we'll have a sign up link going out sometime in April. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that?
No, that's perfect.
I do.
Yeah, come on.
I'm a parent of a student at Cane Ridge. For each week, are they going to go over something different each week, or
yeah.
will it be the same material?
So, okay, that's a great question, Ms. So each week is going to be the same content week to week, because ideally your student only needs to go to 1 week of the boot camp.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we're trying to get at least 100 kids of our Gear Up students to participate. So we want 25 different groups, or 25 unique students a week, if that makes sense. So 1 week should do it.
Okay. Sounds
Great
good.
question. Anybody else?
I don't know if you want to also plug the other opportunities like the Lipscomb math camp and other opportunities, just in case anybody wants to hear them.
Yeah, so if any students love math, like Mr. Mark just said, we've also partnered with Lipscomb University to host a math camp. I don't have a lot of details about what the specifics of that's going to look like right now, but it will be all about math and actually about the ACT math section for sure. So if you know that's an area that you need to work on, this is going to be the opportunity for you. It's going to be the second week of July. So that's July 11th through the 15th. Okay. So that's happening at John Overton. We're also going to provide transportation. We're also going to provide lunch and snacks and all that good stuff. And there's also a limit of 25 students. Okay. So pretty easy to remember there. But it's going to serve all those Gear Up schools that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. The third opportunity I want to promote is also the week of July 11th through the 15th. Conexión Américas is a wonderful educational nonprofit here in Nashville that serves a lot of our English language learners, primarily Spanish-speaking students across 4 of our Gear Up schools. They're going to host a college planning week at Glencliff High School for their students. I think it's all going to be in Spanish. the target audience is our Spanish-speaking students. That's also going to be a free opportunity. Guess what? Free rides again, free transportation, free lunch, and free snacks, and new friends. It's kind of the same thing. That's all July. That's everything that we have planned for July that we're supporting. But also want to just make sure everybody here understands that Promising Scholars starts on June 2nd, I think, something like that, somewhere out in there, and it lasts for 4 weeks in June, and the registration for that is ending, I think, March 31st, which is just next week. So be sure to be touch base with your counselor at your school. Your GERP coordinator can help you get signed up for Promising Scholars, which of course is like an academic enrichment, totally optional thing, but it's such a great way to spend time in the summer, learning, having fun, planning for the future, and making new friends, because it's open to, you can sign up for any school you want, not just the one that you go to. So that's cool. So where do we go to sign up? So this is like so new that we don't actually have a link ready for y'all to be able to sign up right now. But here's what I would say to parent and anyone else wondering. I think all our people that are on this call right now belong to Cane Ridge. I'm going to make sure that Miss Darty circles back with you to make sure that your kids go on the list if you're interested, and she'll make sure that when that link goes live that we get them registered, and make sure that they get the week that they want to go to ACT camp, or the week that the other opportunities that we talked about, right? I'm sure Ms. Darty can help your students sign up for Promising Scholars as well. And that goes for any Gear Up school as well. Anybody else? These are great questions. I love it.
I see the little dots, like somebody's typing.
I see the little dots. I'm just waiting patiently too.
I guess I do have a question. This is Mark. I'm the Gear Up advisor at Stratford. I know your last bit was there about parents that the best thing they could do is be there to be the encourager and to be the support. Is there anything else that a parent can do to kind of help their child move forward and be prepared for the ACT and this college going process?
Yeah, so it can be a very overwhelming process because there's so many pieces that the students have to keep organized and they have to juggle. And so, part of it is going to be helping the students keep that information organized. And so if they can come up with charts or diagrams or a filing system or whatever is going to work to keep all these pieces of data and pieces of information organized would be great. And I know the Gear Up folks will have really great tools and information about how to do that available, and I'm sure they'll get into that. And then the other thing I talked about was that emotional regulation. Really, if you can start helping your students figure out how to, if they start getting stressed about something, even if it's not ACT, but if they start getting stressed about something, what are those natural skills that they can engage in that will kind of talk them down off from the ledge and just kind of recover and get their feet back underneath them? Those are going to be some of those what we call soft skills. Those are going to be really key to being able to manage the test when it comes time for that test. You don't want to try to figure it out the day of the test. That's too late. But if they can start practicing them ahead of time, if they're starting to get worked up, even about a situation with friends, oh my gosh, I can't believe so-and-so did this and that. If we can start helping them kind of de-escalate that and then look at a situation in a more calm manner and then problem solve, those types of skills then translate to other areas of their lives as well. And so working on those types of things will be really helpful.
Awesome. That's a great answer.
Thank you.
All right, y'all, this was a great session. I'm so grateful for the parents that were part of this tonight. Thank you all so much for showing up for Gear Up, showing up for your kids. It's really inspiring. They need the support. They need you in their corner. That's the theme of the video, that Dr. Cook shared a few minutes ago. And we just got to reiterate that. Y'all are wonderful, and it really says a lot about you to show up to a virtual meeting like this and learn about the ACT. So I just want to say thank you all for being here. And most of all, I've got to celebrate and give major kudos to Dr. Kock for bringing this awesome information about the ACT to us. And I hope that anybody in the future that watches this on our YouTube page sees how special it is to have an opportunity to learn about the ACT, have it just sort of broken down and demystified like that. So thank you so much, Dr. Kock, for that. And thank you to our Gear Up team that could be here to engage with parents and students as well.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.